It's Friday, and it's time for the next in our Fanzine Friday series. This is News from Bree number 20 from January of 1977. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer, and this is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. This week, that's News from Bree, number 20, produced by Hartley Patterson from January of 1977. This is a great episode with lots of fantastic content. Can't wait to share it with you. So today we're taking a look at News from Bree, number 20, from January of 1977. Hartley Patterson is the editor. And we're seeing in this fanzine, I think, that Hartley's finally getting a lot going. He's got a lot of contributors. He has lots of art, lots of letters, lots and lots of information. This is a really good fanzine. And to me, it seems like it's taken a step up from where he was even just one issue earlier. And in addition, as I may have mentioned before, next time the fanzine continues, but it gets down to a smaller size. Looks a little bit more, I don't know, to me, what I'm used to with a professional fanzine like Dungeoneer, Underworld Oracle, and several others with the heavy stock cover, etc. So it seems like this is where he's really starting to come into his own with his fanzine. A News from Bree is a regular sized piece of paper. This one is not folded in half. It's front and back, and then he stapled through it. So it's a little harder to open, so some of the photographs not quite as good as they are in some of the other ones. So the cover here is, once again, art by Stephen Lines, who did the last cover, and has done art in all the fanzines we've looked at in terms of News from Bree. Great art, sort of a Conan-like figure here in the front. I think his art's getting a little better. At least his fantasy scenes like this are getting a little better. So, really cool traditional early piece of art. He doesn't say much in the editorial like normal. His are pretty short and sweet. He says now he thinks they're shifting over into what they would call a semi-pro fanzine because he has more people, I think, involved than just him as the main difference. But he's saying we're getting better circulation. We're starting to get some advertisement. And he says, I'm not sure what we're going to do here, but it certainly seems like it continues to be a big D&D centric focus from what he's getting in. He has scrapped the numbering section, and now he just has a regular table of contents where he tells folks what's on each page. So he's got the editorial, and then he has a lot of discussion of fanzines. Again, his fanzine list covers wargaming, diplomacy, as well as Dungeons and Dragons or fantasy RPG centric ones. So I'm just going to talk about the ones that are sort of D&D related. He has something called Postal D&D Rules from a guy named Chip Charney in North Carolina, who says he gives you a comprehensive set of rules for D&D. I don't know if it's his home brew rules or what. He doesn't really say. He mentions alarms and excursions, which we've seen before, Fentorgan scrolls, games and puzzles, which is generally just a games and puzzles book. But I think one of the guys from Games Workshop, I can't remember if it's Ian or Steve, worked there. And it says in issue number 56 has some D&D magic items in there because it's just one of the many games they talk about. He talks about a number of others: Owl and Weasel, Wild Hunt, seem to be the primary ones that have Dungeons and Dragons related material here in this list. He also mentions one called Trojan Horse, which is called Dippyzine, Diplomacy fanzine, but it just does have a chat on Dungeons and Dragons in there. And you can sort of see here that the Dungeons and Dragons is starting to become a lot more popular. There's another one called Massimore of Trevorrow. He says it's just 2 pages on Dungeons and Dragons and dungeon lore in that one. Night Games Catalog is actually just a catalog, but he says they run Dungeons and Dragons at their location. and then he has a whole bunch of things about fantasy. He has reviews on miniatures. We'll mention more about that. A whole bunch of stuff on Dungeons and Dragons, and then in the back he has another review on Starship Troopers, and a review which is further discussion of the Lord of the Rings game Siege of Minas Tirith. You see our contributors now starting to grow again. Hartley, of course, puts it together. Chris, Stephen, Lines are artists, and we get a new piece of art this time from Paul Thompson. And then a number of contributors of content: Chris Bursley, John Norris, Charles Vassy, Glenn Blackow, and Lou Pulsifer. And if you don't know, Lou's a pretty well known early era RPG guy. So that's kind of and he also contributes a letter this time. Okay, so we talked about the miniatures, and I'm not going to go through it, but I just want to mention, you can see it takes several pages. It's really, really well done. Discussion. He gives lots of detail about individual figures in here. This guy, John Norris, does. He talks about what each one of them is, what they might be useful for, and he talks about all these different lines of miniatures. And so I think that's something that folks would be interested in. A few monsters, again, no real section. They're just sort of stuck in the fanzine. The first one's the Night Gaunt. It's a winged humanoid. That's all it says. Armor class 8, carries a sword. Charles Bursey contributes that. He also contributes the Black Orc. He says they're a little bit better. They're 2-hit dice. I think this, what the picture is here, would be of a Black Orc. Nigel Clark contributes the Randy Elf Maiden. It's a female elf wearing a cloak. Says that she will instantly attack any hobbits and demand the ring. So that's a little gonzo. The Purple People Eater by Joseph Nicholson. 8 feet tall, one eye with a horn. It can hit you with the horn or bite. The Nazna, which comes from Tony Hetherington. Basically a 5 foot tall human, only has one arm and one leg, and usually carries some type of a magic hammer that they will use. And the Chinese Fox by Hartley Patterson, the creator, and it's a shape changer, and it's like most lycanthropy. It can only be hit by silver magic weapons. Then there's an article in here which is, I think, quite good and very thoughtful, by Glenn Blackow on balance in D&D, and he just is sort of an article for the DM talking about the need to craft a game that's going to be fun and yet challenging. He sort of, suggests as just this one example. If you've been playing for 6 months and nobody's characters are still alive because they keep, they're all dying, and I think it's probably a little too hard. Whereas if they're 10th level after 6 months, they're probably it's too easy. So I found that to be a really thoughtful article. And then we have Lou Pulsifer's contribution, in addition to some comments in the letter section, are some magic items, which I thought would be fun to look at. He says he found these, by the way, in a book called The Motif Index to Folklore Literature, which he says is really well organized and it's rare, but you should try to find it in a local library. These are just some ideas he got from reading in the magic section. An amulet of health that gives you a better chance of survival or disease resistance. A gem of desire that will add charisma. Amulet of infinite antidotes, immune to poison. Amulet of long sight, just let you see further away. A magic chain that'll hold anyone prisoner, so without dispel magic they basically can't get free. Amulet that's immune to sleep, to prevent you from sleep spells. A magical whip that whatever you hit will become either docile or friendly. A magical dagger that warns someone around you's not being honest. A magic bench, if you sit on it, it will, like a magic carpet, it'll take you somewhere. The magic bridle, if you can put it on an animal, they'll be completely well behaved and follow your commands. A magic lantern that automatically illuminates when a particular type of monster gets near, which might be good, but not if you want surprise. A statue that will bite the hand of anyone who speaks untruth around it. The magic light, only the person using it can see as if it's illuminated. The rest of the party or less people around cannot. That's kind of cool. A model ship, and if you take this model ship onto a ship, you just can't have any type of an accident at sea, no wrecks, can't get lost, etc. A magic word, and so when the magic word is spoken, it'll break anything that's binding you. So it's sort of a good thing to. You would read a scroll, it would imprint this magic word in your mind. You can keep it till you need it. That's kind of helpful. The magic speaking tube, you speak through it, and it translates your common language words into a language that can be understood by any type of normal animal. And the staff of thaumaturgy, or the blessed staff, and magic user cleric, and it basically lets you cast your spells or prayers one level higher. The staff of omniscience lets you communicate with someone on another plane. The rod of supremacy will create serious wounds, and when it hits. A magic stone, you gotta like this idea, especially for early D&D where level drain, right, was a big issue. This magic stone will restore 5 years of life, and I would let it restore or restore a level. I like those ideas. The flying chariot, it has horses that can fly you. Liquor of prophecy, drink it gives you hints about some things for a short period of time. The staff of omniluminescence lets you use one of the beholder powers, like from the 11 eyes. I think that's crazy overpowerful. The cursed staff lowers you unless you get it removed, it takes you down by a level, so you lose all your hit points, you lose all your abilities. He calls it the talisman. When it says when you're confronted by a particular type of creature, you will appear as a deity that they will revere, and so obviously do whatever you tell them to do. A magic cloth that lets you find a lost horse or mule. The girdle of curing and forgetfulness will either cures disease but causes you to have amnesia. So a little bit of both, right? Magic gloves increase the chance of pickpocketing by 20%. But we've talked about that before, right? All these different things that give you a bonus on a particular thieves skill. I really like that idea for thieves. They don't have that many unique items, I don't think, in for example, AD&D, DMG. A truth collar, if you put this collar on around someone's neck, they have to tell the truth. Magic powder you can sprinkle on a leprechaun, and it'll be essentially charmed, it'll do what you want. Seems pretty limited in use to me. And finally, shoes of climbing. Will thieves wear these? They have a 0% chance to fall. Other characters, if they have leather armor or less, will be able to climb walls. So that's it for News from Bree number 20. Lots of good stuff in here. As I said, it could take a deeper dive into looking through these miniatures. Maybe once I start taking a focus on miniatures on some other videos, we'll come back to this one to take a look at those early days. And again, he's seeing lots of good content from different people writing in about all kinds of ideas now about their local campaigns. So he's getting really good conversations going among players around the country. So that's it. I hope you're enjoying the series. If you haven't already subscribed, I hope you will. And if you know someone who might enjoy this, please ask them to subscribe. We're getting pretty close to the end of the year, and I'm trying to get up to as many subscribers as I can by December 31st. So appreciate you mentioning me to your friends. And I hope everybody's going to have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I guess I'll probably see you next week before the New Year. So until next time, my friends, keep rolling.